All right, good afternoon, everyone. Taylor Johnson here in the 6 News Alert Center following that breaking news of President Biden's decision to drop out of the 2024 presidential race. Now, he did post about this a little over an hour ago on X. We're going to take you right to that post that he made here so that you can see it. So in the letter, he says, in part, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." Now, the president also says that he does intend to address the details of his decision later this week. This does come a little under a month before the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and that starts on August 19th. Now, former President Trump, he also offered his own response to this decision from President Biden. Now, he said on Truth Social that President Biden was not fit to run for president and that he is also not fit to serve. He then said he will fix the damage done by the Biden administration and that he will, quote, "make America great again." Now, as you may remember, the Republican National Convention just wrapped up a few days ago, where President Trump did become the official nominee for the 2024 presidential race. Now, in addition to this, there has also been a lot of calls for the president to resign in general following this announcement of him dropping out of the race. So one of those calls came from Speaker Mike Johnson, and Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, "If Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, then he is not fit to serve as president." He also made a post about that on X as well, as you can see here. Also, we got some local responses from people in our region. First, we're going to start with the Nebraska Democratic Party. So the chair of the party, Jane Cleave, she says that she deeply respects the president and acknowledges that there is always a time to transition. In addition to her, we also received a statement from Senator Tony Vargas, who says that we owe President Biden our gratitude for his longtime leadership and honorable service, and he believes that his selfless decision to step aside will ensure that we have a strong nominee and that we can win and serve this country capably into the next 4 years. Now, we've also gotten some responses from the other side of the aisle. We're going to start with Senator Pete Ricketts. He says that the strength of the Trump-Vance ticket has never been more evident than today. Kamala Harris owns the Biden policies. In particular, she pushed for the terrible policies that led to a full-scale invasion of our southern border. There is one choice in November, and that will lead to security and prosperity for American citizens, and that's a Trump-Vance administration. So, as you just heard in Senator Ricketts' response here, that he talks about Kamala Harris, and the reason for that is because in another post on X from President Biden, he endorsed Vice President Harris to be the new Democratic nominee. He finished up with that post by saying, "Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this." Now, in more responses to President Biden's decision to bow out of the 2024 race, we heard from Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds. She says it doesn't matter who the Democrats nominate to replace Joe Biden on the ticket. They all represent the same failed policies of the last 4 years, especially Kamala Harris. Donald Trump will be our next president. Until then, if Joe Biden can't run for re-election, it's clear that he isn't capable of running the country. So she is another person who is calling for him to step down as president following this announcement that he would be dropping out of the race. We've also have a response from Chuck Grassley, who is a senator as well in Iowa. He says that the American people are sick and tired of the Biden-Harris open border policies and high cost of living crushing family budgets. A change in candidate doesn't fool anyone. Changing horses midstream isn't going to stop the bad policies and reckless agenda at the top of the Democratic ticket. Now, as for what is next, as I just mentioned to you, VP Harris has the endorsement of President Biden to be the Democratic nominee, but the Democratic National Convention is not until August 19th. So there is still some time before we find out who the official nominee is going to be. Now, in the meantime, the president is still isolating in Delaware, where he earlier this week, he was diagnosed with COVID-19. Now, his doctor says that the president continues to take Paxlovid and is self-isolating, but he says that the president's pulse, blood pressure, respiratory rate, temperature, and oxygen saturation are at normal levels, and his lungs are clear. He also said that the president is tolerating treatment of Paxlovid and continues to perform his presidential duties as of right now. So again, news has dropped that President Biden has dropped out of the race. It's been a few hours since that decision has been made, and there has been an influx of responses and reactions. People on the Democratic side of the aisle praising him for his bravery in the decision to step aside. That is one of the statements from Hakeem Jeffries. And also on the other side, on the Republican side of things, as we heard from several of our representatives here in the area, they do believe that Trump and Vance will be the winners of the election come this fall. We are continuing to follow this closely. Again, President Biden, along with his announcement, also endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee, but we have until the Democratic National Convention next month to see where things will go. We also have continuing coverage from other local leaders who we will be speaking with today, and also learning what will be next. What will the process look like now that President Biden has made this decision? He did indicate that later this week he will address the nation about his decision, but in the meantime, he is in Delaware self-isolating after a diagnosis of COVID-19, and again, his doctor does say that he is doing well. So be sure to stick with 6 News for the latest updates as we continue to follow these developments tonight and also in the coming days. And as we get more updates, we will be sure to bring those to you on air, online, and also from our alert center. On your side, Taylor Johnson, 6 News.